I just want to kick on the conversation slightly and kind of bring it back to the TV show, because obviously we've got a group of kids here from a local school. I think it's important that we talk about how there's been such a narrative over the last couple of years about education, education, education. And I think surely that drama's proven that kids' TV shows can play an important role in that. And I think I just wanted to ask Keaton, because we've not heard from him in a while. No pressure. I'm sure that you felt quite proud taking part in a show like that that's actually saying something that's got weight behind it.
Yeah, because at the time that it was filmed, there was the whole, I think the Euros was going on. So there was like players like Saka, Rashford, they was getting abused for obviously what happened there. So it was like, it was relevant. So obviously I was proud to take on the storyline and show what needs to be shown. And going back to what we were saying about the teammates, I think the hardest thing that was for Freddie is calling out the situation, because he could have easily just kept on playing and just kept it inside and told no one else. But he kept on playing. Teammates was behind him. Obviously, Liam was like, he wanted to just carry on playing the game. There was only 5 minutes left, which was a big thing, so they could have easily just stopped. But I think they done the right thing as well, which was to come off the pitch.
What do you guys think, like I said, about just the power that kids' TV shows can have, and it is an important role?
Yeah, I think the power of TV shows for children is huge, right? Ultimately, these are the next generation of footballers, the next generation of all of us sitting up on this stage, and being able to have these challenging conversations at such an early stage in life, I think is really important. I think it also means that, you know, if people witness this when they go and play football on a Saturday, or netball or hockey or cricket or indeed anything else, they'll feel comfortable to say, actually, we need to have this difficult conversation. What's the right thing to do? And to really challenge in a different way than I suspect many of us sitting up on this stage in terms of our generation would have done before. And for me, that's really powerful, because that's how we create the change that we want to see in society. I'm really clear on saying, let's be clear, racism is not just a football issue, right? Racism impacts all parts of society. We've seen that over the past 18 months. And we recognise that football has an amazing power to unite the country, to unite communities. But let's be clear, until we kick racism out of society, it's going to be really difficult to kick it out of football. And I think we have a role and a responsibility to keep trying and to keep having that discussion, to keep engaging with young people, players, coaches, everybody across the landscape. But we have to recognise this is a societal challenge that we are facing, and one that individuals for many years have been trying to fight and try to move forward. And to Iffy's point, I think we have to also stop and go, there are things that we have moved forward. Our players now are having a vocal position and a voice on some of the challenges in a different way than they might have done 20, 30, 40 years ago. But that doesn't mean that we've done enough. And so for me, it's keeping the momentum, keeping the focus, and recognising different mechanisms of communication. And ones like this TV show, for me, are fantastic.
Yeah, everything what's been said. I think all of us on the panel, and probably a lot of people outside here, understand the power of football. Where I actually feel I'm in a really, really privileged position, and I feel I put my responsibility on myself. I'm not saying I'm taking all the responsibility, but I feel that because we're where we are, we've got a platform to try and affect change, and we don't want to lose that. We see what happened in the Euros. We know the power and the reach football has. So I think it's up to us not to take on the societal challenge, but drive it forward. Because of that, using that power we have. The piece, we talk about education, and I've seen a lot of the work being done at clubs in the communities. We have our own Primary Stars programme with school-age children, so there's a lot of work being done. But actually, what you're looking for is any education with a small e piece that gets as far reach as possible, and that's what this does. It's education, little films of Sheer and Ian Wright, their education pieces. How many times, how many platforms, how can we get those education pieces that shift the narrative, that start to roll back, dial down some of the anger, I think, especially on social media, dials that down, and starts looking into what people really feel about certain situations. Can't have enough uncomfortable conversations. I'm always uncomfortable when people go into little silos and think, right, that's enough, I just won't say anything. No, Troy Deeney's brilliant. You'll know Troy Deeney from Watford. He's a real vocal campaigner. He says, and he'll say openly, he's had a lot of arguments with friends and family about this, but he doesn't care. He wants it all out there. Let's get it out. Let's have those uncomfortable conversations. And I absolutely 100% agree with him, because the worst thing is we go away, we don't talk, we brush under the carpet, and we don't affect any change.
So like you said,
No, I was going to say, I think what we see now You know, I think everybody, we can sit here and share all of our stories of what's not been going right in recent years, but I think we are in a good place, as much as it doesn't seem like we are. You know, obviously myself, of all people, knows how much it gets trolled on social media and stuff, but we just saw yesterday someone got arrested. You know, so it's small steps, you know, and hopefully now having these types of conversations, and I wish I had this type of opportunity when I was in school. You know, I went home and watched Sabrina the Teenage Witch and, you know, shows like that. There was never shows like this. And, you know, I'm from South East London. My school is pretty diverse, all different types of people from different backgrounds. But I think these types of shows are so impactful because it's educating people that, and you can talk about it at school. You know, I know the kids, when I actually went to their school the other week, coincidentally, and I didn't even know they were coming here today, and they were even talking about this in the school. Some of the kids were, you know, so it's so impactful that they can have this type of education early on. And it is important to have awkward conversations. And I hear people saying things, you know, not necessarily my friends, but it's difficult to call people out all the times because you go to football matches and there are sometimes people say things that they don't even know what they're saying is wrong, but you can't jump down people's throats. I used to say to them, you can't say that, you know, and then they're like, why? You know, and then you educate them and then they sometimes take a step back and think, actually, I can't really say that. So I don't want it to be like this all doom and gloom. We talk about all these horrible things that's happened to us because there are things that happen in society now that I think are changing for the better. And unfortunately, the way it works with social media as well, with the trolls, you could get 100 nice tweets, you could get 2 that are not very nice. And those are the ones you think about. You know, and those are the ones you're going to see on the news, you're going to see on Sky Sports News. Another player's been racially abused, and it's absolutely disgusting. But there are things that are happening behind the scenes that I'm optimistic that in 2-3 years' time, we'll see the impact right now, because it's not just going to be happening overnight. These things don't happen overnight.
I think for me, from a personal perspective, over the last few years, I think one of the people that's really always been like a bit of a role model for me is LeBron James in the NBA, because he was always very vocal on these types of issues. And I always felt like I wish there was a footballer that did that over here. And it was something that really used to upset me. And I think it's such a good thing that this current generation that are growing up with Rashford, Saka, Tyrone Mings, Troy Deeney, who are, you know, putting themselves out there and unafraid, no matter what happens off the back of it, to just say what they're thinking and to just fight the cause.
Sorry, I was going to fall off my chair a minute ago because Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Don't act like no one.
Yeah. Come on, Troy. I know you probably tuned in a couple of times.
Well, once. Sorry, I just wanted to make it light-hearted a little bit because sometimes you can. Well, I didn't make it. Lianne made it, but sometimes you can be so all consumed into the conversation that you forget, and a little bit of laughter actually infuses me a little bit as well. Yeah, the positive, the ownership that the players now are creating in their own space. You know, I admire, so you say LeBron, I admire all those figures. Lianne spent so long out in America. I admire all those figures. I think we've got a lot to learn from the way the American sports stars actually speak in this space, take ownership of this space. You know, Black Players for Change, which is the organisation around, you know, this soccer, the soccer stars in America that are embracing the NBA, that, you know, they're all together and they have a voice that is one. And that's where we need to get to. So we've identified individuals who are now speaking in this space and many more that are posting on platforms. It's brilliant. I like the conversation from someone like a Ben Mee as a champion of you know, whatever that situation that happened last July after Project Restart, June after Project Restart, Man City, Burnley, they're taking the knee for the first time. It's visual. And there's an aeroplane flown over the Etihad that says White Lives Matter, Burnley, you know. But the captain of that football club, who never had the experiences of his black and brown teammates, wanted to speak vocally. They'd been beaten 5-0. The commentator thrust the mic in front of him and said, "So you and your defence, you're pretty crap, aren't you?" And he just wanted to have a conversation about the aeroplane and the message. Those kind of things are the important things that we need to hang on to, because they will empower more and more. And I'm infused by our young people. Our young people are speaking in a space now that I was never confident when I was a youngster. Never. You know, I had to hold things. I didn't share them at home. We didn't share them in school. We just kept those experiences to ourselves. And even that is traumatic because they play with you, like I said. So our young people are providing a stepping stone now for many to speak confidently about their experiences. Because I couldn't speak confidently because no one would listen. Now, this will have a massive change, I think. If they'll let me, I don't mind using some elements of it to help empower the next generation as well. When I speak to young players, yes, it's a drama, but it's an authentic drama. It's a drama of actual situations that are being played out on pitches up and down the country. So when I'm ready to go, which is not long, by the way, I haven't got long left, I think I'll leave a much better space where we'll have young leaders walking into, accepting the challenge almost, because it is a challenge, by the way, and leading from the front. And that will only help the generation after them and the generation after them.
Yeah, I think undoubtedly you'll be leaving it in a better place. I'm not too sure how we're doing for time, but one question, Iffy kind of touched upon it earlier and we were talking about it before, was just about the importance of taking a knee and how people feel about that. Because as I said earlier, I covered Brentford, and obviously we all know about Ivan Toney and that decision. And Brentford obviously made the decision just before the start of the season to take the knee again, although Ivan still stands. And I was at a Black History Month event for Brentford recently, and a lot of fans were there, and they just spoke about how proud they were that the team did it again. And sometimes when you're in the media, you don't realise that the impact of that on the day-to-day people that pay their good money and go to a game. And these fans were saying, it crushed us when we didn't do it. So do we still think it has a really strong value?
Yeah, we spoke about that, didn't we?
Yeah.
So, as a very quick story, as part of this squad visit, so we go to every squad before the season. We went to Brentford, spoke to them. I ended up just having a one-to-one with the manager. He's a very charming man, by the way, but he was explaining why they didn't take the knee in the Championship. I wasn't expecting this conversation, so we had about 10 minutes, and I felt like I was doing a bit of a sales pitch. So I explained that the scrutiny in the Championship is very different from the scrutiny in the Premier League, and actually the story of Brentford's magnificent. You're kind of everyone's second team. You're actually jeopardising how you're going to be viewed when the season goes on. So we had a little bit of back and forth, and I ended up speaking to 3 or 4 of the players, including Ivan, and we explained. And I think for them, that was a bit of a shift because they'd not had support possibly in the season before. But I think once they heard that it was coming from the Premier League and we were going to do a film around it, I think it was a little bit of a light bulb moment for them, even though Ivan, obviously, on an individual basis, still stands. So they did it. They had a captain's meeting. They all decided to do it. And I think, like you said, it's been well received and actually they feel the pride. And anecdotally, those conversations happen everywhere. I'm hearing a lot of conversations where young guys and young girls and young boys are going to games, watching the knee take and saying, going to the mum and dad, why did he take the knee? So you're having those conversations, parents are explaining some of the history behind it. Edleen spoke very, very well about the real long history of it, but in terms about the recent history with Colin Kaepernick and people like that, real activism. So that's got some cut through. And I go to a lot of games, and I've seen a lot of games in the flesh and on TV. It's easy to forget that before the Euros, it was all this, how long are we going to keep taking the knee for? Are we still doing this? That was the narrative. And you heard a lot of narrative before and during the early parts of the tournament. And then what happened after the final, we all know what happened. And suddenly that feels like a victory. Because I watch the broadcasters now, I watch the games live, and everyone to a person claps. I think there's a little bit right at the beginning, but everyone just claps. So it feels like a small victory is won. No one's ever now doubting the authenticity and the power of the taking the knee. And that makes an impact. You know, that starts to affect things even this week on a completely different sport. What's happened with Yorkshire cricket? It's affecting sponsorship, it's affecting owners, it's affecting reputation. So there's the cut through. Now we've gone from football to a cricket situation. It's affecting all aspects of life. It's starting to hit commercially for organisations who aren't getting this right, or in Yorkshire cricket, they've gone spectacularly wrong. So this is a cut through that's happened over the last 2 years, so we can't forget that. There's loads and loads of work to be done, but those simple, powerful gestures make such a difference.
As the youngest, sorry, you go on.
I just want to just add to what Iffy said and just say, and let's not forget not just the power within football, but actually the power on the sporting landscape more broadly. So I know when we think about summer, we all talk about the Euros, but actually for me working in the FA, one of the most powerful moments for me was working with Team GB before Tokyo, because the International Olympic community were not going to allow players to take a knee. And we had to do a lot of work speaking to BOA, IOC to say, we don't want Team GB to be disqualified from the competition if they choose to make this decision. And we had conversations with the players where we were saying, taking a knee has got to be your choice, but let's recognise under the rules of the current competition at the point at which we're having that conversation, you could be disqualified. Now, for me, that is hugely powerful that those individuals and those young ladies still decided that we could walk out on that pitch, we could take a knee, we could not even play a moment of football when we might be disqualified. That was the point at which they were making the decision. Now, luckily, IOC changed their stance before the tournament started, but that was due to a ton of work in the background for various different organisations going, surely, IOC, you have to shift your position on this based on what we've seen from a societal perspective across the past 2 years. And so, for me, it's not just what the impact is within kind of our singular sport. For me, that's a shift for IOC, which impacts so many other sports, and we can't forget that impact globally as well.
All I was going to say was that, as the youngest member of the panel, sorry to put you on the spot again, but you probably have a very completely different perspective and experience of taking a knee to the rest of us. So when you first kind of saw that, what did you feel?
When I first saw it, I think it was in one of the England games. I thought it was actually good because in one of the episodes, I'm not sure which one it is, we actually took the knee as well before the game started because of what happened. So it's like, even like you were saying, it's grassroots football, but it has a effect across all sports, all levels of football, and I think everyone even watching, because there's loads of people that watch football, so they feel impacted as well.